This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
I'm Jeremy Hobson. This is the follow-up from the middle. We're bringing more of your voices into the conversation each week. And today we are following up on our conversation about the challenges facing teachers in 2026. We had a lot of teachers listening. We got a lot of your voicemails from teachers around the country and former teachers. And I am joined now by a former teacher, Kate Berger, who has been a teacher and a school administrator and is now chief of program at Teach for America, Colorado. Kate, it's great to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeremy.
Well, and just so that our audience can get to know you, you were a teacher in the Denver public schools. You were an administrator until 2022, which, as we remember, was the end of COVID. Did you leave teaching because of burnout like so many other people, or was it for other reasons?
Well, it's interesting because I actually started teaching in Mississippi in 2003. And so I've taught in both urban and rural public schools. And I went into school leadership and then I went back to teaching. And I felt like at the end of my 20th year of education, I had given what I had to give to kids in the classroom setting. And I had a wonderful student teacher who I just saw and was reminded of the hope and the energy and felt like it was time for the next generation to take the helm.
And now, as we said, you are at Teach for America, Colorado. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing teachers right now?
Kids are still recovering from COVID. Teachers are still recovering from COVID. At Teach for America, we place recent college graduates to teach for 2 years in urban and rural areas. And our teachers that just started this summer are kids who graduated from high school during COVID. And so they're even impacted by it. And so I would say the biggest challenge that teachers are facing right now is figuring out how to meet kids where they are and push them to sort of reconnect with school and reconnect with each other.
Why is that so hard for them now, several years out from the pandemic? Why is it so hard for people to reconnect with school?
I think it's about human relationships. Adolescence and even elementary school are times where you're learning how to be a person. You're learning how to interact with your friends. If you went into, fifth grade in 2019, you are in eighth grade by the time we all went back. And so those critical communication skills, those critical relationship building skills are at a deficit in kids. And we have to figure out how we can help them learn the academics as well as learning how to be people in community with one another.
It's interesting hearing you say that, because I wonder then, as you look back as somebody in education, and I'm not asking you to speak for Teach for America or all teachers, but do you think, looking back now, that it was a mistake to keep kids out of the classroom for as long as many places did during the COVID pandemic? Or do teachers feel that way?
Again, like you said, I don't want to speak for all teachers. I actually really enjoyed teaching during COVID, even in the online setting. I'm not an expert on public health. I'm not an expert on school funding. But what I found is that the online learning worked actually pretty well for about 75% of kids. There were, 10% of kids who loved it and switched to online schools after that. And there was a small percentage of kids that really struggled. And so I think one thing that I saw effective at my school was we sort of let kids come back at their own pace and did some hybrid online and in person at the same time. And that was hard as a teacher, but really benefited all of the kids.
By the way, you talk about how Teach for America recruits teachers. Is it harder, easier, or about the same as it has been right now post-COVID to get people into the profession?
We actually have greater numbers this year than the last few years. And we feel like that is due to a couple things. One, this generation, the Gen Zers, they have this deep hope and this deep commitment to make the world a better place, and they have the leadership skills to do so starting in the classroom. When I have conversations with them, they talk about everything from figuring out how they can get their special needs student to read on grade level, all the way to how do I impact the policy that sets state education funding in Colorado. And they're already thinking about that at 22 years old. And so they're building those experiences. And it's actually, we're gaining momentum because of the desire for Gen Z to make the world a better place.
Interesting. Well, let's get to one of our voicemails. Here is a caller who is, like you, a former teacher.
Hi, my name is Liz Rogers, and I'm calling from Park City, Utah. I left teaching roughly a year ago after having taught for about 15 years. I left for a number of different reasons, but a tremendous part of why I left is because of the impact that COVID had on parent-teacher relations. Ever since COVID, teachers have been cast in this light that is completely unfair to them, and parents have been given this power to dictate how, why, when, and what their children get taught. And it has had a wildly negative impact on the way that students are trying to learn and teachers are trying to teach.
Kate, did you have that experience that parents are getting more involved than before and not necessarily in a good way?
No, not from my personal experience. And I don't want to say that caller's reality is not true. In my experience, our families were super involved. And when we came back in person, they were also craving that the human connection. And so I actually built really strong relationships with my parents, particularly as we were easing back in, because they were worried about, some of them were worried about masking, some of them were worried about not masking, and we had a lot of conversations. And I think what teaching during COVID did for our school was it encouraged us to communicate with parents more because they're home with their kids, right? And so I actually found that it was easier during COVID to build those relationships and then sustain those relationships outside. Parents want what's best for their kids. Like at the end of the day, that's all anybody wants. And so I find that you really have to partner with parents and listen to them and also trust your expertise to know what their kids need based on your years of experience.
What would you say to parents who are listening right now if they want to be helpful, but also not put an extra burden on teachers that's unnecessary or that will not actually be helpful even to them in the long run?
I would say two things. One, talk to your kid about school. And I don't just mean what did you learn today, but how's your relationship with this teacher? I know that math has been hard for you in the past. Tell me about what your teacher's doing to help you with math. Just so that kids get in the habit of thinking through, teachers are people too, and they are trying to improve their craft every day to make things easier for you. And then the other thing I would say is listen to the teacher and to the kid before you come to a conclusion. Often it is whoever gets to the parent first gets the first, is believed. And it's really important for us, but also for kids, that you hear all sides of the story and then you ask follow-up questions about that before jumping to the defense of one party or the other.
Not surprisingly, one of the big issues that came up in our live show about the challenges facing teachers is artificial intelligence, which of course is new to everyone, including the teachers. Listen to this caller.
This is Cecil from Sterling, Illinois, and I believe that teachers are having a hard time figuring out how to incorporate certain technologies into the classroom, especially I've noticed with the rise of generative AI. Teachers seem to be being pushed to use it more, and so it kind of creates a strange expectation for certain kids to figure out how to use that within their work, but then, they end up using it to write their essays for them. I graduated a year ago, and in my senior year, I did see a lot of generative AI usage, even during tests in the classroom.
What do you think about AI right now in the classroom? Obviously, it's changing very quickly. And I even saw that there was one school district that banned it at the beginning and then several months later had to turn around and say, actually, we need to be able to use this, but in the right way. What do you think about AI in the classroom generally?
It is truly complicated. As we've all talked about, as this has become the center of everything that we do, there are potential bias concerns. There are potential intellectual property concerns. And what I encourage teachers to do is sort of put those large existential questions aside, because I do believe it is here, and figure out how to use AI in a way that helps kids learn more, not less. And so the caller talked about having it write papers or even help you on tests in the middle of a test. We really encourage, obviously we don't encourage kids to do that. Well, the beauty of AI, I think specifically for students who have special needs, right? Like the ways that it can help summarize, the way that it can help teach you what questions to ask as you're studying, and the way that it helps with executive functioning. As a neurodivergent person myself, I use AI all the time in helping me plan out my days and weeks. And so I think we have to acknowledge the bias inherent in it, and we have to say, okay, this tool can actually help kids learn how to ask really good questions, which at the end of the day is what we all want to do for the rest of our lives, is be curious. And so we, at Teach for America, we acknowledge the biases, and we also want to provide training to teachers about how to use it, in different grade levels and in different content areas, to make sure that they are using it in a way that enhances learning rather than detracts from it.
How much training is going on for teachers in terms of how they should be using and allowing students to use AI in the classroom? Is there are there conferences that all the teachers go to and they say, okay, this is what you're supposed to do, or do they just have to figure it out on their own?
It varies widely. Geographically, it varies. I feel like I'm not actually giving you an answer, but it really, truly varies widely. And so, Teach for America teachers are the ones I can speak to most readily right now, and we're all over the country, and they get a basic training and some practice during their summer training, and then we try to offer as much professional development around it as we can. Varies by region, of course, and there are places to learn. There are conferences happening, and to get the funding for that is a whole nother topic. But teachers who are really excited about it and have dug into the training that's available to them, early adopters, so to speak, are having really good results with kids. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get the resources to support those teachers in getting that development.
Are you seeing any teachers that are like really old school and they're like, there is absolutely no AI allowed in this classroom in any way?
100%. And at the same time, like Colorado just passed a law that there are no personal devices allowed in schools after the morning bell and before the afternoon bell. And so, it's this push and pull about, well, we have this technology, it can be used for good or it can be used for evil, but we've got to figure out also the unique balance of how we use it based on the developing brains too, because these are not 30-year-olds that we're saying, here's this tool and several ways to do it. These are 8-year-olds and these are 14-year-olds whose brains are doing a lot of different things. But we have seen that the move, we have one TFA alum who's a principal now in Denver who moved her school to no devices, not even Chromebooks, school-issued Chromebooks during the day at all, except once a week. And students are writing on pieces of paper again.
Wow.
And I know, right? What a concept. And the whole culture of the school has shifted positively because kids are actually getting those skills that we talked about that they lost during COVID of relating to one another again.
A reminder to follow us on Substack if you aren't already. We are at listentothemiddle.substack.com. We'll be right back with more of your comments with Kate Berger here on The Follow-Up.
This episode is brought to you by San Pellegrino Ciao. A gift from Italy to your home. San Pellegrino Ciao is a flavored sparkling water made with real fruit juice, finished with a pinch of Sicilian salt for a perfectly balanced taste. So which flavor will you choose? Peach, lime, blood orange, cherry, or maybe the all-new limoncello? Crafted in Italy with 0 grams of added sugar. San Pellegrino Ciao. Buy it now.
Welcome back to The Follow-Up. I'm Jeremy Hobson. I'm joined by Kate Berger, former teacher and current chief of program with Teach for America, Colorado. Kate, one of the things that, as I was preparing to talk about the challenges facing teachers, that came up as a big one, maybe the biggest one, according to some of the experts, is absenteeism. The studies show that it has gotten better since COVID. This is basically kids staying out of school. But 1/4 of students are chronically absent from school in the United States. What is going on?
What isn't going on? I mean, you've got families that are trying to figure out how to support their kids to go to school while also working multiple jobs. You have kids who have anxiety, have mental health challenges brought on by some of that isolation during COVID. And then you have just the sheer nature of large public schools. Kids feel like they maybe aren't seen, or they feel like they don't need to be there because they can get all the stuff on Schoology or whatever platform they use. So yeah, it's a very real problem. And chronically absent, I think, is defined as missing 10% of the days. So that's missing a whole day every 2 weeks of school.
Yeah.
And when I think about if I had done that in middle or high school, how far behind I would have gotten. So really, I think one of the biggest things is child mental health right now.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do about that? I mean, is there something that should be done that would be, an easy way to get those numbers down?
I wouldn't say easy. I think it is all about those relationships, right? And so if schools that work really hard on absenteeism, they start by focusing on the parents, and they try to get or the trusted adults, regardless of who is supporting that child. And they try and do home visits, or they try and invite the families to the school. But on a larger scale, it's about making the school a place that the kids and the families feel safe and welcome. And so at the end of the day, you have really good attendance the first 2 weeks of school, and that's your chance as a teacher to catch the kids and excite them about not only your content, but about your classroom space. And what we find is that teachers who are able to establish those relationships early on have students with better attendance, because kids are excited to come to that school because they know that that teacher believes in them, and they know that the relationships with their classmates are positive.
All right, let's get to another caller. Listen to this.
Hi, my name is Mary Jacobs. I'm from Hailey, Idaho, and I used to teach elementary school. One of the challenges I think that teachers face that was so frustrating for me is not being able to teach how they want, what they want. Curriculum is so structured, and we have this top-down approach where the state and the district decide on the curriculum, and it's hard to vary from that. And if you might have an enthusiasm or a passion for something, if it's not in your curriculum, you're not allowed to teach it. And that was always frustrating to me, and I think it's gotten a lot worse in the United States over time. I know I have heard that in Scandinavia, teachers are given the power to teach what they want because they are seen as the experts who have a degree in education and know how to teach, and they're given a lot more freedom.
Everything's always better in Scandinavia. But what has been your experience in terms of mandates about what to teach and how to teach coming down from the state or the politicians or the school boards, and is it appropriate?
I believe standards are really important. I think that the Common Core math standards, I'm one of the rare people who really loves them, and the literacy standards, because they set a clear expectation for what students need to be able to do to leave from K-12 education ready for whatever path they choose next. As for who designs the standards and who dictates what you teach, I believe in research, and I believe in data and evidence. And I think people who have experience either in the classroom or who have research on what methods and what content and what standards actually push kids to learn more and to be better, stronger thinkers and readers and mathematicians, that's what we should be teaching in the classroom. And so however a district gets there, the most important part is that it's rooted in research and best practices.
I want to get to one last caller. Listen to this.
Hi, my name is Miss Carol, and I have been a teacher for 7 years, and I am in Texas. One of the things that teachers face is the lack of leadership with administration. Administration does not back their teachers up when there's a problem in the classroom or a problem with a parent, or even when a teacher tries to retain a student because the student cannot read. One of the reasons they're not reading is because phonics is not explicitly and directly taught. As a seasoned teacher, some of the things I personally have dealt with is when you have a strong teacher and a weaker teacher, or a teacher struggles with, let's say, classroom management, it puts the strain on the stronger teacher.
I hear that, and I just think like all politics is local in a sense that each individual school, each teacher's experience is going to be different. But what about that? Just teachers having to rely on other teachers, and then that puts more strain on the teachers.
I think that is one of the sort of vocational duties of teachers, is to look out for those new ones who are coming in. And I would argue that the administration at most schools is also in it because they care about kids. I think mentorship programs are incredibly important. We have 2,000 alumni in Colorado. Many of them are still in education, and pairing our core members or our teachers up with experienced teachers is the thing that they cite as keeping them in the classroom, the thing that they cite as making this job sustainable and enjoyable for them. And so I think at the same time, our experienced teachers need to know their own limits and honor themselves and find the balance between supporting others and also saying, I need to use my planning period to grade. There's lots of ways that you can support each other without just spending time talking all day. And so giving them those resources, sharing what's worked for you, and then saying, and now I'm going to tend to my own students because that's who I'm here for.
If you could snap your fingers and do one thing to make it so that teachers were not experiencing the level of burnout that they seem to be, what would it be?
Fewer classes per day, more planning time.
Interesting. More planning time. As somebody who is apparently off the charts on planning and organization, as a Virgo even, I love planning and I love organization. So I say all for it, all for more planning time. Kate, everyone that comes on the follow-up gets to make a prediction. What is yours?
My prediction is that the Indiana Fever are going to get it together and Kelsey Mitchell's going to be the MVP of the finals.
Everybody wants to make a sports prediction. Why? Why is it always the sports? Because it's easy to do. Because there's
also because I spent my life not following professional sports and I'm really into it now. So that's kind of all I think about.
Okay. All right. That is Kate Berger, Chief of Program at Teach for America, Colorado. Kate, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy.
And thanks for listening to The Follow-Up. It was produced by Harrison Patino. We are going to be having 2 shows over the next 2 weeks about America 250. And this week, it is going to be What Would You Change About America? That is going to be a very interesting show. We'd love for you to participate at 8444-MIDDLE, or just listen to us and make sure you follow and subscribe. And rate us. How about that? Would be nice. Write a review. I'm Jeremy Hobson. I'll talk to you soon.
Boston, New England. Maybe you're from here. Maybe you went to college here. Maybe you live here now. It's a place rife with smart people and big ideas. Every week at the Boston Globe, Say More brings you the best thinkers and storytellers from around the region, like Dennis Lehane, author of Gone Baby Gone.
I loved growing up in a working class town. I loved the loyalty. I loved the jokes, the sense of family bonds. I don't find that in a lot of the rest of the world.
Expertise with heart from all around New England. From the Boston Globe, listen to Say More.